my sister Peggy's had a most unusual life. She's responded to so many of the things that have happened to her in a very mystical, heartfelt way. One example, she's very attuned to nature, and when she would go to these churches, she didn't feel God there as much as she did out in nature. And so consequently, she would spend a lot of time in the woods and in lakes and this sort of thing. And as her children grew up, they all became rather orthodox and went to their church and all, and they were a bit upset because she wasn't going to a church. So she thought about this. So one Mother's Day, she invited them. She lived over the coast, about 40 miles away from them, and so she invited them over for Mother's Day to go to her church. And of course, they all said, "Mother, you have a church, finally." And she said, "Oh, yes." And so they all came over. She fixed them a big breakfast. And they all caravaned in their car, and she went to this wonderful park. And they all parked their car, and they said, "There's a church way out here." She said, "Oh, yes, just follow me." So she took them on this little hike, and they got deeper into the woods, and there was a specific place where there was a wonderful little bridge that they all got onto this bridge, and there was a huge waterfall cascading down and plants and ferns everywhere. And she said, "I'd like everybody to kneel down on the bridge and face my church." And she said, "You will never hear a sweeter choir than that which you hear from the water. You will never smell sweeter smells in a church with incense." And she said, "You will never feel closer to God than when you're right here in His creation." And that was kind of the type of person my sister is. And so many things had happened to her through her life, which she handled so beautifully, that I finally wrote a book about her, which is Coming Full Circle. And my sister was and is an excellent musician. She writes her own music. She founded a motorcycle group so that she could be in nature more. She had a lot of trouble with her son, who ended up in prison. And she actually helped work with the prison system to determine that there's a difference between emotional disability and mental disability. They had considered him mental. He was very bright, very mentally alert, but couldn't handle things emotionally. And so she took it upon herself to introduce the system to the difference, and she got him on emotional disability. And since then, other people have recognized this, and that it is a very big difference. And her daughter was severely burned, and she had a lot of trauma to go through there. But most of all, she was just so in love with her husband, and after about 17 years, he went off with a younger woman, and she was just totally heartbroken, never really got over him. However, she married another man who she said was a wonderful companion, not so much the deep love, but they had a wonderful marriage for 40 years, and then he died, and she was very heartbroken again, and her first husband came back into her life. So that's why it's coming full circle. And the karma that he had incurred, he was able to rectify in such beautiful ways. And it's just an extremely touching story of the way she's handled her life and been extremely mystical all through it. For instance, when she plays music, and she plays a lot in churches and other gatherings, and she says that when she starts singing, that something comes over her and it's no longer her, that she is like listening to something singing through her. And the people listening all say it's an angel. And I think so. Very proud of my sister.